What's up, everybody, and welcome back to. As you can see, I don't have a co-host right now. There he is.
How about it? Yeah,
We
now
are
you do.
we are back at the On the Bluff podcast. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me back after becoming a father a couple weeks ago, my co-host Gabe Coombe. Brother, it's good to see you. It's good to have you back. Obviously, congratulations to you and Taylor once again. How's the first couple weeks of dad life been, Gabe?
We're in the trenches, brother. That's all I can say about that. No one tells. I mean, everybody tells you about the sleep. You hear people like, I finally know what real patience is about. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. But it's been smooth, man. Myers is good. We're hanging in there. I still don't know. Like looking back at it, because my mom and my dad came into town like right after he came out. On that Thanksgiving, and we made food and everything, which looking back at it probably will never, if that ever presents itself again, which it may not, I'll never do that again, because that was really hard just to have people around in his first couple of days of life. But like them talking about not having paternity or maternity leave back in the day, our parents are some damn OGs, brother.
Yeah.
The boomer generation are some OGs for having to they did not get paid time off work at that time, because I couldn't imagine what me and Taylor would do if we didn't get granted that opportunity. But it's been smooth, man. It's been smooth. Not all of it's enjoyable, but a lot of it is.
Yeah. It's like you said, you're in the trenches. It's the early days.
For sure, man. For sure. And it's, if you can bang out 5 hours of sleep, that's a really good night. I think you're sitting more around 3.5, 4. That's just usual for it, but it's okay, man. We're figuring it out a day at a time. They don't give you a manual, unfortunately. They don't give you like a big book to just like reference for every single situation. And a lot of the things, what's hilarious, and Kenny can probably attest to this. A lot of the things they tell you not to do, you end up doing just because it calms the baby down. Like it's just whatever works, you do. It's that simple.
Any means necessary. It's kind of
100%. How have you been, man? How's the show been without me? Everything smooth?
Everything's been good. Everything's been good. Just got back literally like an hour and a half ago from New Orleans. I was there Friday until today with Anna Ruth and her family. We were at the Saints Commanders game on Sunday.
That was a good one.
It was
a really good one. Yeah,
it was. Once they took Jake Haener out and put Spencer Rattler in, it was much better. So,
what are they doing in New Orleans right now?
I don't know.
Honestly,
I don't know. Anybody that
Darren Reese, is that he's still the interim? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing.
If anybody thinks Jake Haener should even possibly start a game, they're absurd. But it ended up being an entertaining second half. So at least we called a fun game. Like I said, ate a lot of good food. Had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So just got back from that. So a little tired, but when I'm talking to a guy that's got a 3-week-old baby, there's not much complaining I can do.
Yeah, dude, I have run up the Uber Eats bill like crazy. I mean, it's been nuts. Uber Eats and DoorDash have been getting a lot of my business lately. Service fees. They've been getting some good service fees. I can tell you that.
Crazy? Have you been stir crazy? Or you been all right?
I find a way to get out of the house like once a day.
Yeah.
And usually it'll just be for nothing. Like go up to Walgreens or Target and get a Diet Coke. I have no idea. I just try to get out of the house. Or if I have to go record something up at the studio, go knock out my lives, because I'm still getting my money on my lives. Shout out, guy. You can't miss those while I'm out of 92.9 for until January 6th, which weird day to come back. But hey, nonetheless, it is when I'm coming back. So I find a way to get out of the house, but I do get pretty slap happy, stir crazy. Just want to. I feel like I'm just confined in this little area at times, because I really am, quite frankly. So I find a way to get out of the house by any means necessary.
I gotcha. Well, we got anything else? Any other news or notes? I know your recap is going to be all baby focused for the foreseeable future. So, with that being said, with my trip to NOLA out of the way, let's jump right into it. Talk a little bit of Memphis basketball. This was a big one over the weekend against Clemson, off the heels of a loss to Arkansas State, which changed the opinion of this team, especially from a national perspective. We saw them go from number 16 in the country in the AP Top 25 to unranked. And it just kind of felt like they might have been written off a little bit, but Connor and I on your show talked about it last week. Like these 4 games, Clemson, Virginia, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss, like that's kind of the season. And you got to at least go 500 in those 4 games because it's your last opportunity to get any major wins out of the way. So first test, they passed. It was a little bit scary, terrifying, another overtime game. But Clemson was ranked number 16 going into this one. So a really, really big win for Memphis, especially being on the road against a top 16 opponent in the country. PJ Haggerty was off in this game. We've talked a lot this season, what happens if PJ is off or Tyrese is off. Luckily for Memphis, Tyrese and Colby Rogers both stepped up. What was Tyrese, like 7 of 10 or 7 of 11?
7 of 11 from 3, yeah.
In this game, he took over in overtime and really carried them to a win. So it was one that you don't want to say they had to have, but in a way they kind of did because they needed at least 2 of these games. And to start off this 4-game stretch with the win against right now, it'll change probably with Ole Miss being at 17 and Clemson losing. We'll see how the rankings shake up. But as of in the moment, this was the most difficult game in that 4-game stretch.
Yeah, on the road, and I think on the road to Virginia coming up on Wednesday is going to be tough as well. But like you had to get the bad taste out of your mouth, and it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard to turn around after losing to a inferior opponent at home. Everybody's saying all these negative things about you. You had been reading all of your good newspaper clippings. It's hard to turn around and completely flip the script, especially in a tough road environment against the number 16 team in the country. When you end up in overtime, a lot of things down the stretch didn't go your direction. In overtime, like usually when you get to an overtime game like that, and the home team mounts a comeback, you have some struggles. Usually that home team ends up running away in overtime, but it showed some resolve, man. This team just has some resolve, and really, this backcourt is everything you could have imagined and more. The 3-point shooting is just unbelievable, man. They're still second in the country behind Bradley of all people, but they're 45% from 3.
Just like we thought, right?
Exactly. Tyrese Hunter is at 51% from 3. Colby Rogers, 44%. PJ Haggerty fills it up whenever he needs to. Like, as long as those guys are going, you feel pretty confident about where you're at. Now, I still think, like, looking back at that Arkansas State game, you still need to, like, understand that this is how this team was last year at this point, quite frankly. There was the high highs and the low lows. They started off, and they always found some good energy against ranked opponents or Power 4 opponents. But then against the conference teams and some of these lower level teams, they didn't put out their best effort. So I still think that's in the back of my head, but it was a really good response considering it came off your worst loss of the year.
Yeah, and I totally understand what you're saying as far as last year's team. And I know for us as people that talk about the team and have seen all the different years, and for fans who have lived through it, I know it's easy to like correlate it back to last year, but I think we have to keep
I'm not saying it's the same team. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying there were similarities into how they manage the out-of-conference schedule and some of the efforts they still put out there. You still have some of your worst opponents ahead. I still want to see how they manage that night tonight, because even Penny said on his show, right? He said, this was the first time against Arkansas State where his team thought they could roll out the ball and go beat them with their talent. They weren't able to do that. But I love where this team is at right now. I still think very highly of them. And it's hard not to.
And I think like the hope has to be at this point, but with the contrast between that Arkansas State game and the Clemson game, has to be that, like you said, in that Arkansas State game, it was kind of just roll the ball out there, we'll win it. Like we're a way better team than this team, no doubt. So now it's do they learn from that and understand, like, if we're not bringing our best every night, we can lose to anybody. But if we are bringing our best, we can beat anybody. And that's what you have to hope. And last year's team, they never
learned that lesson.
They never learned that lesson. It was like, yes, we can beat some of the best teams in the country, and we should be able to do nothing and beat the worst teams in the country. But It just doesn't work that way, and they never
Right.
really learned that lesson. So with these 2 games, you have to hope that they've seen that now, and with this being a completely different team, we can't put the sins of last year on them and say that they've learned going forward. And we may not see that for a minute because, like I've mentioned, it's Virginia and Ole Miss and Mississippi State coming up. They're big competition games coming up that you would imagine that they would get up for. It's when they get in the conference, I think, that we'll really learn the answer. Did they learn their lesson, or did they feel like, if they play a Tulsa or a UAB, that they can just roll the ball out there and win? And we'll learn that eventually. But you would think with the goals, aspirations, leadership, veteran mentality of this team that they learned that lesson and they don't have to learn it again.
Let me run this by you because this sort of goes back to my original thoughts on this team coming into the year, or at least after the first couple of exhibitions when you saw what the rotation was going to look like. I get the sense that maybe you're just going to have games like that throughout the season. Because you're playing 6 or 7 guys, and they have dug themselves plenty of first half holes.
Yeah.
And they did that in that Arkansas State game. And you're just going to have nights like that when you don't have a long rotation and you have to try to come back in the second half using all this energy through a long season. It just feels like sometimes the shots aren't going to fall the same way. Even if you're expending that energy, not all the good things are going to happen for you that have been happening in some of these second halves so far this year. Is that part of it as well, where it's just they don't have a lot of guys, and some nights you're just gonna have a stinker, and
Right.
we could chalk that up, that Arkansas State game up to that. Is there something to that? Because
Oh, yeah.
I sort of wonder, because I think in conference they'll drop a couple of games. I don't expect them to go
Yes.
undefeated, and I expect it to look probably pretty similar,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think eventually, like that fatigue and that just knowing that pretty much those 3 guys and PJ, Tyrese, and Colby have to play well offensively every night for this team to be successful. There are going to be games when 2 of those guys are off, or possibly even all 3 of those guys are off, and there's just nothing that you can do. You don't really have anything to combat that. So I agree in the sense that they probably will drop a couple of conference games that they're favored in, just because that's such a difficult run to go on and absolutely sweep the conference. But it really is an optic thing.
Yeah,
It's how does it look? Did they just look like they couldn't hit shots that night, or did they look like they didn't care and didn't want to be there? And I
right.
think that's the biggest difference. If you see a team that's kind of rolling through everybody and they hit a speed bump and it just looked like, okay, they were fatigued. Those 3 guys were, they try to combine whatever 32% from the floor or something like that. Then you say, okay, we'll chalk that one up to it wasn't their night and move on. We'll see what the next one
Yeah.
looks like. So I definitely think that's possible.
And honestly, last year, if you just sort of relate it to last year, they had that kind of stinker that they won against Vanderbilt, what was it, 77-75, something close like that.
Yeah.
Then they never really got it back after that. You know what I mean? They didn't have this type of response game like we saw against Clemson,
Yeah.
where they showed that's not who we are. This is who we are.
Yeah.
That team last year, once they had that nasty loss,
It was kind of a wrap.
it just completely spiraled out of control, and they had to win games really close. They were playing bad ball against inferior competition. But let's take a look at the metrics real quick, because I think that's pretty important. Right now, Tiger's sitting at number 30 in the net. Now, according to the net, the AAC absolutely sucks, but that's not a surprise. According to everybody, the AAC sucks. There's only 4 teams in the top 130, according to the net, when it comes to the AAC. That would be Memphis, North Texas, not UAB, Florida Atlantic, and of course, Wichita State. UAB is the team I want to bring up really quick. Number 1 team picked in the American Athletic Conference by the coaches. They suck. They are 244th in the net right now. Their most recent game was yesterday. Well, the 15th, because this is going to come out on a Tuesday. We record on a Monday. UAB led by 25 at halftime against the Arkansas State team, quad 3, that beat Memphis. UAB ended up blowing that game after being up by 25 at half, 98-89 in overtime. UAB is now 0-4 in the quad 3 and 4-2 in the quad 4, and they have no quad 1 wins. That 25-point halftime lead that they blew to Arkansas State is the largest blown lead in college basketball since 2018. So, all that being said, the main source of competition you thought you were going to have to deal with in this conference as we inch closer to conference season, when we look at all the metrics, they're not going to be competition at all, it doesn't seem like.
No.
It seems like they have cooked themselves before they even got started.
0%. And then just going further into that and just looking at the rest of the conference, like you said, with FAU, North Texas, Wichita State. I mean, you look at their out-of-conference schedules and you go, it's pretty much a one bid league,
brother.
It's a one bid league unless Memphis absolutely runs the conference and another team wins the postseason tournament.
That's what I'm saying. Memphis would have to do a favor to somebody. I feel like there'd have to be an upset over Memphis in the conference tournament because there's only one team that can actually be an at-large team. It feels like, and that's Memphis. I guess Wichita State, if they continued to win, sure. Florida, if they only had 6 losses the entire year with the crappy schedule they have with the AAC, sure. Maybe Florida, they could sneak in an 11 or a 12.
The best team that they've played is Florida, and they lost by 37.
I know, but but they're 8-1 is my point. You know what I mean? They haven't lost a bunch of games, and we're getting into conference schedule, and the schedule gets probably even lighter for them as you get into the AAC. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't see another team outside of Memphis who can actually get an at-large bid right now. No. It's a one-bid league unless somebody steals one in the tournament because it feels like Memphis is just about – I'm not going to say locked in. It's 10 games into the season. But you look at most early bracketology, it's like Memphis 6 seed, 5 seed. They got as high as a 4 seed in Joe Lenardi's at one point. So I think you're in a pretty solid spot if you're Memphis. When you look around in the competition you're going to have to be dealing with for most of the season.
Yes. Anything else you have on basketball before we move on and talk a little bit of football, Gabe?
I don't think so.
All right.
I guess wait, one more thing I guess we do have to mention. Memphis does have 5 quad 1 wins, and they're right there with Auburn. There's only 2 teams with more than 3 quad 1 wins.
Yeah.
And that's Memphis and Auburn, the team they lost to. The closest teams to them are Tennessee, Bama, Oregon, Iowa State, Duke, Purdue, Clemson, and UConn with 3, I believe, quad 1 wins. So it goes to show the resume building that Penny Hardaway tries to do is very worth it. It's very important for the stature and the national, conversation. It's great for this program, and they've managed it really well. And that's a testament to this program and to Penny as well.
100%. All right, let's talk a little bit of football. Bowl game is, if you're listening or watching this Tuesday, it is tonight at 8:00. What do you think, Gabe? West Virginia, Memphis is not the most exciting game, but at the same time, it's a Power 4 opponent with at least some decent brand recognition, brand exposure. Sure. How you feel about it?
No coach, I guess, too. Neil Brown's gone, and Garrett Green's he's like a sort of a joke at the quarterback position. Like people, especially if you follow people that follow the Big 12, they make fun of Garrett Green a hell of a lot. Why do people in Memphis hate this bowl game? What's the big gripe?
Here's my thought.
Somebody help me with that.
This is my thought on it. Typically during bowl season, there are a lot more options, right? Like typically you would see a team that was better than 6-6 pinned against Memphis, who's 10-2 and a top 25 team in the country. But just look around. I think that's the problem. I think people are looking at this in a vacuum and saying, "Oh my gosh, Memphis." Top 25 team, they're playing 6-6 West Virginia, but look around. Look around. A perfect example. Look at Ole Miss. They had a great season. Right. They were kind of on the fringe of being a playoff team. They played Duke in the Gator Bowl.
I know. I don't know. I don't know why there's so many complaints. There's 2 things people need to understand. One, this is probably one of the best payouts for a bowl game in the AAC. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that when you play a Power 4 opponent, your payout is substantially higher than if you played one of those bowls where it pits Group of 5 versus Group of 5. Yeah. So that's a positive to this. And the other part of it, I would want to play before Christmas at this point. The bowl
Yes.
season's not near what it used to be. So I'm not going to wait around to play in a, later bowl game, even if it has a bigger name, because I want to get home for Christmas. And also, like, I think when you look at the coaching staff, let me get this damn bowl game out of the way right now, because guess what's open right now? The transfer portal. I have to go deal with that shit. I have to go deal with recruiting. I have to deal with all of this. So I don't really get the complaints from people. I don't. If you wanted to be in a better bowl game, you could have won the UTSA game or the Navy game. Like, I don't really get the gripe here. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, and I think I've seen some people saying, "Well, Tulane gets to play Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl," and it's like, okay, but Florida's
like
also a 2-touchdown favorite in that game, and it's
also, can we not, like, let's also put into perspective here. I know Tulane got beat by Memphis last game of the year. Tulane was in the AAC championship.
Right.
Tulane earned some things with this conference.
Correct.
To get into a better bowl game.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. I find it a little bit annoying to see all of the complaints about this bowl game. You're playing West Virginia. You don't get that you don't get to play that game all the time. You don't get to play this type of group of or Power 4 opponent all the time. Take it as you can get it. And I know it's not going to be the same West Virginia team. Probably a lot of transfers, no coach, but that's how every bowl game against a Power 4 opponent is going to go.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the game right now.
Let me ask you something, and you answer this for me. Okay, would you rather be Memphis right now playing West Virginia in the Frisco Bowl favored and you get it over with on the 17th, or would you rather be playing Florida and probably lose that game by 2 touchdowns and have to wait 3 more days? Like, I'm just seriously, I would rather get the win against a Power 4 opponent and go into recruiting harder towards the transfer portal earlier rather than playing an SEC school and probably losing.
I mean, honestly, I'd rather, if this competitor in me, former player in me, I'd rather play against Florida a couple of days later. And I'd probably rather go to Tampa than Dallas or Frisco at this point in the year. And I don't know why people are saying, like, Frisco's no man's land. That's Dallas. Like, it's right. Yeah. It's like, can we stop doing that? But yeah, I'd still rather go to the Gasparilla Bowl, but Tulane
earned that.
At one point was, like, in the conversation to be in the college football playoff. They're the team that got to the AAC championship over you. You sort of have to take that into consideration. I know you feel like you hammered them final game of the year and all that, but that team did something you couldn't do, getting to the American Athletic Conference. So they have a higher, probably better choice than you when it comes to bowl games at the end of the year. But also, would you rather be Memphis or would you rather be Army right now, who just had to take a fill-in to play in the Independence Bowl? Yeah. The Independence Bowl was supposed to be Army versus Marshall, but Marshall did not re-up Charles Huff, their coach. He's going to walk to Southern Miss, I believe. Is that still on? I believe he's going to be the coach. That's sort of last I checked. Charles Huff's not going to be there, so everybody's getting into the transfer portal, and Marshall ended up opting out even after winning the conference or Sun Belt title, I should say, right? Yeah, the Sun Belt title. They ended up opting out of the bowl game because they couldn't field a roster because everybody got in the transfer portal. So Louisiana Tech from Conference USA had to fill in for Marshall, and that's tough, man. Like, isn't that as brutal as it gets? Because, like, I think there's a couple of things that are a problem here. One, Marshall, we can go after Marshall and their AD for not getting it done with Charles Huff. Players clearly love him. He just won a damn Sun Belt title. You probably should re-up him by any means necessary. But the other part of it is the transfer portal being open right now is an issue. That's a problem, man.
Yep.
And, like, can we just say it? It's stupid. Like, I understand we want freedom of movement, but we need to figure out a way to somehow keep the sanctity of the game together while still doing these things.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair to anybody involved with that bowl game. That's not fair to the bowl officials. That's not fair to Army. It's fair to nobody to have to last second fill in a
5-win team,
conference championship winner with a Conference USA 5-7 nasty, terrible Louisiana Tech team. Like, and it's all because the portal's open right now and everybody's hopping into it.
Yeah.
Can't we just move this back to the spring and just have that portal be open at that point, or move it back a few days? The recruiting calendar and how it coincides with college football right now, it's not a viable way forward.
Yeah.
And you need to go figure out other avenues to explore. It's maddening because I think we have this conversation nearly every year. It usually doesn't rise to this where you have a full team in the portal that opts out of a bowl game, but it is a recurring theme every time we get to bowl season and postseason in college football.
Yeah, and speaking of the portal, I want to get your opinion on this because this really shocked me, because we talked about the portal opening at this time and what it would do for schools that were not in the college football playoff. But one thing that's really shocked me is you have teams that are still competing for a national championship and in the college football playoff that are having to deal with the same thing as well.
Right.
Like, not only are they having to focus on competing for a national championship, scouting whoever they're going to play this upcoming weekend, they're also having to recruit the portal because it's open. So you're seeing transfers already taking visits to schools that are about to go play in the college football playoff. But you also have players that are transferring from teams that are still vying for a national championship. Is that not blow your mind? Because I didn't think we'd see that. I was kind of the opinion that if a school was in the 12-team playoff, who's going to leave? Like, who's going to leave that opportunity? But because it's open this early and there's such a mass exodus, if you're not playing or you feel like the grass is greener or, whatever number of circumstances, you kind of have to leave now to get your name.
There's an end date to the portal. The portal's going to close.
Right.
It opens and it closes. So, you have to get in while you can. So, like, Bo Prabula from Penn State, did you see all that?
Yeah.
Their backup quarterback ends up getting into the portal. And what he put in his tweet, he said, the current NCAA postseason model creates a challenge for student athletes. The overlapping college football playoff and transfer portal timeline has forced me into an impossible decision. After speaking at length with my family and coaches, it's with a heavy heart that I announced my intentions to enter the transfer portal. Like, he can't even see out the rest of a potential national championship season because of the timeline right now. So it's not good for coaches. It's not good for players. It's seemingly not good for anybody.
But then,
it seems like everybody should be on board with getting this thing fixed.
Yeah. But then you have scenarios like Devin Brown, where I think Ryan Day has said that he'll allow him to stay and practice with the team, even though he plans on entering, has announced.
I think we've had situations like that happen. Like previously, last year, I think Caden Veltkamp was the starter for Western Kentucky, and somebody maybe in the comments can go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Caden Veltkamp ended up being the starter because he came back out of the transfer portal for Western.
Correct. Yes, I do. Yeah, I remember this now.
But he was in the portal.
Yes.
And he started a game.
The bowl
Western
game,
Kentucky last year. The bowl game. And he ended up winning it. He threw for 300 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was ridiculously good. And he ended up coming back because they promised a little more playing time. But yeah, this is just, it's nonsense.
Yeah,
it's completely nonsensical. We're all over the place.
It's crazy to watch. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, Gabe and Kenny will finally be reunited, as me and Gabe have. So I know Kenny's excited. I know Gabe's excited. So quick break. On the other side, we'll be back with the Hot 3.
You see, Dane, for me, is the biggest reason why I seriously doubt the Tigers have peaked at this point. Because if Memphis were at its peak right now, Dane would be averaging about 15 points a game. I mean, I think he needs more opportunities because he simply made the most of the limited chances that he's gotten. I mean, at the end of the day, this team is always going to have to be revolving around its guard play because that's where it's the talent and the personnel and the scheming is just that. But Dane is a pretty talented big man. He's a very, very special type of post scorer.
He's such a cerebral basketball player. He knows where everyone is on the floor. He's so good with his footwork. He can finish with both hands, right, left. It doesn't matter. If they're not turning the ball over, this is a really good offense, y'all. because they can score on multiple levels. They can score from 3, they can score the mid-range, they can score in the paint.
Tune in to Tigers Live with Francis Carlotta, live after every Memphis Tiger basketball game on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
There's no way in any world that Boise State, as a group of 5 conference champion, deserves a first round bye over the SEC runner-up or the ACC runner-up. They're not one of the 4 best teams. I think you just rank your teams 1 through 12.
And you just give them.
You seed them correctly, and if the group of 5 champion is below 12, then you just put them at 12 and bump number 12 back.
I felt like all the teams were right. Especially with Alabama not making it. I was like, I like these. I think they decided correctly on the teams, but the seeding for me this time, it's like, man, you still got to figure something out because you got Boise State and Arizona State as a 3 and a 4 seed with a bye. Are they better than Ohio State? Are they better than Georgia? Are they better than Texas? That kind of stuff.
Tune in to The Daily Grind with your host, Luke Hatmaker, every Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
What up, boys?
There
What
he
up,
is.
Kenny?
What up, man? Hey,
Great to see your face, friend.
it's so good to see your face, man. You look like a well-traveled. You look more mature, wiser. All that
Now you're
in
full
the
of
last-
shit. Now you're lying.
In the last 3 weeks. Let me ask y'all a question real quick before we get started on this hot 3. We always get compared, right? Like people see our faces all over, YouTube. Gabe, they hear your voice. They on the radio. Who have y'all ever been compared to? Like, have you ever been compared to like that? You look like this person.
A few.
Few? Okay.
I used to get Jack Black, which was hilarious. Which I don't really see. Just sort of round guy, rotund guy with a beard, whatever.
Okay.
I've gotten Luke Combs a lot.
I like that.
Luke
that
Combs
one.
is
That one's
a
not bad.
country singer. That's a big one for me. Know who one is that someone pointed out to me? And go on your phone right now and look up his headshot. He's the tight end for the Rams, Colby Parkinson.
Parkinson? Yeah.
If I was 50 pounds lighter, it honestly is scary how alike we look.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
If I was 50 pounds lighter,
Oh wow.
it's terrifying, isn't it, Kenny? Like
Yeah.
it is weird.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's weird.
For years, I have been compared to UCLA version of Kevin Love. Like, I want y'all to go and look at UCLA Kevin Love.
Yeah.
I know, that's fair. I like that.
Like, not the new Kevin Love, not the Cleveland Cavaliers Kevin Love, not the Miami Heat Kevin Love.
If you did like the early 2000s chin strap,
But he's done. You should see old pictures of Kenny.
I have done that.
I had the early 2000s chin strap.
Yeah,
And-
Gabe
and-
definitely
and like
did.
in like 2011, 2012, bro.
But yours was
I know
when
all
you had the
about it.
chin strap, it was kind of the Abe Lincoln, right? Where it was kind of thicker, it was longer.
No. I'm talking my high school. I used to go thin. Like I
Oh,
used to
wow.
line it up thin. Yeah.
Yeah, to the point where I
That was my
lived
look.
when Kevin Love got really popular, I was living overseas. And so nobody knew a lot about Kevin Love over where I lived. I came home in 2010 and it was instantaneous. Like, oh my God, this is Kevin Love. To the point where my own wife saw him on TV and was like, she screamed, "Oh my God, why are you on TV?" Like, looks just like him. And I agree.
Well,
Kevin
is this because he used to hoop a lot and you hooped like him?
No. I mean, I legitimately looked like him. Like, it's kind of
he's-
scary.
You should send Gabe an old picture when we get off. Because
Yeah,
it's,
I will.
it's pretty fair.
The problem is Kevin Love, when he was at UCLA, was relative. He was a pretty hefty fella, right?
was thick.
He was
thick.
thick. He's lost a lot of weight, got in better
Yeah.
shape, grew his hair out, got a thicker beard. So maybe, like I always say, I don't look like him now. Guess what I've been called these last couple of days? A lot, all over our YouTube comments. A chubby Klay Thompson.
Eh.
I don't know about that one.
And I'm like, I've never heard Klay Thompson chubby. Okay.
One thing I will say, you guys do have the well lined up mustache. going into the beard. Like that's the one thing. You always have it well lined up.
Does this
Maybe
not
that's
feel
what you're
disrespectful to
getting
Klay Thompson? I mean, does this not feel slightly disrespectful to Klay Thompson?
I think it's disrespectful to you, man. You're
I
good with
don't know,
the
man. Klay Thompson is a fine-looking fella, and I'm
Whoa.
like,
You had to use the word fine? That's weird.
you know, hey, man, I
Weird,
call it like
bro.
I see it, man. I call it like I see it.
All
right, y'all ready?
I don't really see it, but YouTube commenters keep trying. We can find something.
Yeah,
The only one I've gotten, and I don't see this one at all, but is the Raiders quarterback Aiden O'Connell.
You kind of do. You also look like if you wore like different clothing, you could be a character in Sons of Anarchy.
yes,
Yeah.
With the goatee. It's the goatee, isn't it? It's the goatee. We've always talked about the goatee.
What about when he had the mustache?
That's when I got Aiden O'Connell.
Is that the
Yeah,
Aiden O'Connell? one?
that's not Sons of Anarchy. That's a little different. I don't want to say what I think. but
That's
That's
Gabe, if I do recall,
probably, but I don't know what else I'd put after that.
you loved the mustache, Gabe. You were a big fan.
It's better than bald face. I remember bald face, Christian. That was nuts.
That's a little heftier then.
Oh, dude, the
Yeah, he
Aiden
was.
O'Connell comp is pretty crazy, bro.
dude,
good.
come
Pretty
on.
good. It's not bad. It really isn't bad.
It's not bad, especially with a mustache.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to put a
mustache.
picture up. Can y'all see
Yeah,
it?
you know what? When we clip this, we'll
I'll
just
put
sort of throw up some pictures next to our faces.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Aiden O'Connell's a wild one. That's pretty wild. But that was like,
I've got a heck of a lot better mustache though. He's
Yes.
got kind of a puny stash.
he reminds me a lot of like pre-Bluff City
Isn't
Media.
like the
Christian.
little thin porn stash kind of in style right now though?
Yeah.
Isn't it
Yeah, I
weird?
think so.
But
now, I will say with him, like if I would have done the mustache when I was heavier, probably fair.
Yeah.
Why is the shit stash in popularity right now? I don't get it.
Oh.
Still looks terrible.
It's
I
bad.
don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know.
don't
Anyway,
understand.
I feel offended for Klay Thompson.
Thompson.
I just thought it was hilarious. A chubby Klay Thompson. I'm like, yes, that makes the chubby part. Yes, I understand. But anyway, all right, let's get to the hot three. We had a talk about this. Christian and I did a whole segment arguing for individuals on this. I argued for Ashton Jeanty. He argued for Travis Hunter. Heisman Trophy Award was announced this weekend, and Gabe, your guy, Travis Hunter, wins the Heisman. We had to talk about this prior to this recording. We were like, hold on, let's hold this for the podcast. But why, Gabe, was this a no-brainer for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman?
We've never seen anything close to this, and we may not ever see it again for another, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 100 years.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen, especially at this level. And I'm tired of hearing the Chris Gamble and Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson comparisons. It's not comparable.
No.
The guy was top 8 in PBUs. He had 4 interceptions, which was top 10 in the country. He was top 10 in the country in receiving yards. He was top 10 in the country in receiving touchdowns. The guy absolutely balled out. And it's kind of funny to me, even with the Bolitnikoff, I know people are like, Nick Nash should have won it. One, I think it's ridiculous that people want to bring up San Jose State's Nick Nash, who was first in receptions, first in yards, first in touchdowns receiving. And he batted the Triple Crown. But he got a lot of it against Kennesaw State and Sac State, against the really bad competition at the beginning of the year. And also, no one argued for the guy until it was Travis Hunter at the end. I think that, honestly, the voting should have been more of a runaway. It was one of the closest Heisman voting situations we've had since, 08? Something like that, 08, 09?
A runaway?
And I think one thing, the quiet part people need to say out loud more, just say you don't like Coach Prime. Say you don't like the Colorado thing. Please, that would save me a lot of time. Because we've seen Ashton Jeanty before. Ashton Jeanty, I'm not trying to take away anything. He ran for 2,500 yards. He was unbelievable. Came close to Barry Sanders' record. Could break it with some extra games. Probably will break it with some extra games. But we've seen this before. Melvin Gordon ran for 2,200 yards, 2,300 yards at Wisconsin not that long ago, and they were a 10-11 win team. He didn't win the Heisman.
Who won the Heisman that year?
I can't even remember who won the Heisman that year.
I think that was Johnny Manziel.
But either way, you've seen seasons like this that have not been in a Heisman for running back. You've never seen a season like what Travis Hunter just did. You have not seen it. And even with the Biletnikoff, I want to go back to the Nick Nash thing for a second. One, no one was advocating for Nick Nash until he was going against Travis Hunter. I saw Barstool post some shit. Oh, it's ridiculous that Travis Hunter won the Biletnikoff Award over Nick Nash. It's like, dude, you have not tweeted about Nick Nash. They went back and looked on Twitter to see if Barstool Sports had tweeted about Nick Nash up to that point. That was the first tweet they've ever had about the wide receiver from San Jose State, Nick Nash. But also, when it comes down to the Biletnikoff, you remember Marvin Harrison Jr. won in 2023, right?
Yeah.
He was 43rd in receptions, 10th in receiving yards, 3rd in touchdowns. I didn't think he should have beat Neighbors, but I didn't hear as many complaints as I hear about this Biletnikoff Award. Jalen Hyatt won it in 2022, 41st in receptions. He was way down the list. Tank Dell was second, first, and first when it came to receptions, receiving yards, and receiving TDs. Jordan Addison was 6th and 4th and 2nd and when he won in 2021. So, like, it doesn't always come down to who's got the best stats and who's at the top and leading all these stats. If I put Travis Hunter or Nick Nash head-to-head up against each other at the wide receiver position, and I say pick one, and I say, you know, look at these stats, decide competition-wise, who won more games, the competition they're going against, blah, blah, blah. You're taking Travis Hunter a million times out of a million. So I even found that conversation a little disingenuous. But I think this was rightfully Travis Hunter's. Probably should have been a wider spread if it weren't for Deion Sanders and the Coach Prime anti-slant. And that's how I feel. It's just how I feel at this point. I feel as if Travis Hunter should have won it running away, and he didn't.
You honestly believe that the main reason you think that Deion Coach Prime hate is why it was closer? Okay.
Yes, because we've never seen anything close to this. Never. And you see people like, are we saying that, you know, a guy who runs for 2,500 yards, if you play both sides of the ball, you automatically get a lean into winning a Heisman? It's like, well, if you're producing at the level that Travis Hunter is every single time he's taking a snap, sure. Yeah, he played 700 snaps on both sides of the ball, and every single one of those 700 snaps on both sides of the ball was impactful. So I have a hard time saying anything negative or trying to act as if anybody should have won this over him. It just seems like a disingenuous argument, because the argument I have for Travis Hunter is I've never seen anyone produce on both sides of the ball at this level. We've never seen anybody do what Travis Hunter has done. He is exceptional.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes back and tells me something about Ashton Jeanty that I have absolutely seen before. That's a disingenuous argument to me. I'm telling you, I have not seen this before. Then you come back and you're like, well, what about this thing you've seen several times in the 21st century and even before that? It's just not the same to me. So
yeah. I think the argument for Ashton Jeanty is not really fully statistically based, because I mean, like you said, we've seen Barry Sanders, we've seen Melvin Gordon, Derrick Henry, we've seen running backs win Heismans and have big numbers before. Now, obviously, he outpaced the majority. You know, he outpaced those guys. He outpaced Derrick Henry and Reggie Bush and Mark Ingram, running away, outpaced them. So there's that part of it, but like you said, there's been things close to this before. There's been nothing close to Travis Hunter, and casuals will try to bring up like Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson was
Chris
not
Campbell. Like what? He didn't even have a touchdown.
No, Charles Woodson was a full-time defensive player who came in on packages and gadget plays and stuff like that. Very little offensive playing time. So we've never seen this before. There's no argument towards that, and to be a top 10 wide receiver in the country and a top 10 defensive back in the country at the same time is absolutely insane. I think the biggest argument, though, has to come from impact and what he meant to the team. And not that Travis Hunter wasn't important, he absolutely was. But if you put Travis Hunter on the Boise State Broncos, they are not in the college football playoff. I don't think anybody.
Because he's not exactly what they need. He doesn't necessarily fit the missing piece.
Just talking about pure impact of what a player does to a team.
Okay.
Yeah, let me keep going for a second.
Okay.
Let me give a minute. So talking about pure impact of what someone has on a team, and I'm prefacing all this with saying I think this was a dang near 50-50 race. Like this was one of the closest, if not the closest Heisman I've ever seen. So I don't agree that it should have been a runaway. Because Boise State is not any kind of perennial powerhouse. They're not expected to be some great team. And without Ashton Jeanty, they are an average team at best. I mean, Ashton Jeanty almost outrushed their passing yardage. He was right below Maddox Madsen in yardage, which is insane. He ran more by himself than 115 FBS schools did. That's crazy. But Boise State has a first-round bye and is in the college football playoff because they have Ashton Jeanty at running back. And even though Colorado has Travis Hunter, who basically swept awards, I mean, he is award-clad, and Shedeur Sanders, who's a top 5 quarterback in the country, probably number 1 or number 2 between him and Cam Ward. Colorado did not get it done. They didn't even go to the Big 12 championship. It was Iowa State and Arizona State. And they are not playing for the college football playoff. And to go back to, if you put Travis Hunter on Boise State, they're not in the college football playoff. So, they're not the team that they are. The impact that Ashton Jeanty had on that team is far more than the impact that Travis Hunter had on Colorado.
And it's an 11
that's the only way you can have it.
It's about missing pieces and what helps you the most. And Travis Hunter's he's not a running back. So that I think, I agree with you, but I don't know if that I can really take that argument and run with it, if that makes sense, because I just don't know if it's a 1-for-1. I don't know if you can really fully latch on to something like that, because it just, you can't translate that. Because if you put Ashton Jeanty on Colorado, you think that they're automatically going to go undefeated and run through the Big 12. Like if you just switch their team, like, so it's like, I just think it depends on what you need and what are the missing pieces. Now, real quick, you want to talk about impact? I want to go big picture real quick. Big picture. Who's been the more successful program in the 21st century, Colorado or Boise State? And be honest with yourself.
Boise State.
Colorado was 1-11 2 years ago before Travis Hunter got there. And yes, Shedeur Sanders came as well, and he was great. They're 9-3 2 years later after Travis Hunter came. That's impact. I don't care what you say. That is impact.
Yeah.
And you could try to like rationalize it and spin it. Oh, well, Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn and Will Shepard and all these. You could do all that. But at the end of the day, Travis Hunter was the best player on that team that turned it around from 1-11 to 9-3 in 2 years. And that program has been dying in the 21st century, where Boise State has thrived in a lot of ways. And the other part of Boise State, I want people to, no one wants to talk about the pretty important thing about Boise State. Their defense has been phenomenal this year. Very good. Top 30 in scoring defense. They don't let other teams score. They're second in sacks and second in sack percentage this year. Like, they are a very impactful defense as well. So, like, Ashton Jeanty did a lot of it himself, and I'm not trying to take away from him. But the rest of his team is pretty damn good. His offensive line, defense, defensive front, they're pretty damn good, man. It's a good team.
Yeah, they're not a bad team, but you take Ashton Jeanty off of it, they win 6 or 7 games.
8.
Maybe.
I'll give them 8.
They're not in a bye. They don't have a bye for a college football playoff competing for a national championship. So I know it's not one.
He was on that team last year.
What?
He was on that team last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it's just. I mean, players can improve. Travis Hunter was on that team last
but
year.
he's always been. I'm not. I don't want to. That's the last thing I want to do is take away from Ashton Jeanty. But I see too many people taking away from Travis Hunter. It becomes hard when you do these player comparisons. It always becomes, let's take away from the other to try to give to the guy that we like. And I hate that, but that's what it becomes.
Yeah, I don't think you really can't. Like, at the end of the day, in my opinion at least, there wasn't a wrong decision to be made. I'm not mad that Travis Hunter won the Heisman. I would not have been mad if Ashton Jeanty won the Heisman. I know it's not a one-to-one argument at all because different positions. I mean, there's so many different variables. You got one player doing something that no one's ever done before. You've got another player that's taking a program that shouldn't be in the conversation. So they're both extremely impactful, and both were, in my opinion, worthy and deserving of a Heisman. Because if you separate them, if you put Travis Hunter in last year, he runs away with it. If you put Ashton Jeanty into last year, he runs away with it. So they're both very viable.
That's what's tough for both of them. Yeah, it was way closer than it needed to be, because in normal years, both of them would have run away with it.
100%.
Who do y'all think that conference plays a role in in this decision?
Yes, I will. I can agree with that. If Ashton Jeanty did that in the Big 12, he's winning the Heisman.
100%. Yeah.
If he did it in a power conference, he's winning the Heisman. But he played Mountain West teams, and we have a tendency to throw those guys to the side, not worry about them very much.
Well, let's go next step. Who has a better NFL career, Ashton Jeanty or Travis Hunter?
Oh,
I mean, Travis Hunter's going to have a longer career because of the position that he plays.
yeah,
now.
that's tough though, Kenny, because like Ashton Jeanty for 2 or 3 years at the start of his career could just pop off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Travis Hunter can be exceptional at either wide receiver or DB. I don't think he can just play both in the NFL. I'm going to stand on that until he proves me otherwise. He proved me otherwise at Colorado, but
yeah,
like there is the conversation we could have about him sort of blending in at one or the other position in the NFL, but we'll see how it all plays out. I think he is an elite talent that can figure it out and be a Pro Bowl or all pro at some point in his career. But I again, seeing is believing. But Ashton Jeanty could be a first round running back and get, I don't know, 300 carries year one.
Yeah, I think in the short term, Ashton Jeanty is probably better. Like I don't think anyone's gonna be surprised if he's a Pro Bowler next year and like top 5 in the league in yards. Like he has that kind of talent. But as far as longevity, I mean, you're basically just comparing positions, and odds are that if they're both good, Travis Hunter is going to have a better long-term career than Ashton Jeanty.
Do you think? Let me ask you this. I know you guys talked about, or Gabe, you specifically mentioned the fact that we've never seen anybody do what Travis Hunter's done on the football field this year. Do you think that breaking that glass ceiling, if you will, Prime doing that with Hunter, are we going to see more of it? Will we see more players do that?
You can see. Listen, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can totally see someone trying it.
Yeah.
Succeeding at Travis Hunter's level, though,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to show me. I can. But what Travis Hunter has done, I'm more open to the idea.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that the next person that tries to
It's going to be a successful.
can imitate or be as successful.
Yeah.
Because that is so damn hard. It's so hard.
It's wild. Like you see him on the field. He was just the most, like, athletically was just stunning to watch on the football field. Everything he did.
No one like talks about enough how smart of a football player he has to be to do that.
100%.
You know how much fucking information you have to have in your head to like understand the route concept, and if I see cover 2 and where guys are rotating, I have to break off this way and break off that way. You have to understand your blocking assignment. Then you have to go on the defensive end and understand run versus pass. You have to know what coverage you're in and get to the right part of the field. You have to understand what they're trying to do to you. Like the amount of information he has to take in any given week or any given game is insane.
Yes.
Like that part of it gets under discussed.
Yeah.
You have to be a brilliant football player to pull that off.
You have to be a savant, man. Like you, and he is.
You have to be a guy who watches film nonstop during the week.
And deeply understands the game.
Yeah, he is. Travis Hunter is an impressive individual. Just not even on the football field, but just hearing him talk off the field, he's an impressive person.
It is kind of funny though. Can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah. Oh no.
I feel like a lot of the Colorado Coach Prime arrogance, people by association.
Yeah.
Put Travis Hunter into that, and Travis Hunter just seems like a relatively humble, nice kid.
He's just always having fun. That's the thing.
Got his ducks in a row. Like,
yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to see people's opinion of the kid, but
yeah,
I digress.
I know we're not TMZ here, so I don't want to.
His girlfriend? Are you going to bring up the girlfriend?
Can we talk about? Is this red flags, Gabe? Like, are you seeing red flags a little bit?
I listen, man. I don't like commenting on other men's relationships, but if I believe everything I see on social media, there's been some red flags for sure. Coach Prime had to pull her up out of her seat when he won the Heisman. It was kind of strange. She yelled at him and this is just what gets caught on camera. So I don't. She did an 8-minute video explaining herself too. Yeah. She said she left him on red in her DMs. That he wasn't her type. And
which is
There was
fine.
a video of him in New York where he's like taking pictures with fans, and she's like, "What am I just gonna sit here all day?" It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, get used to it. That's what you're
Kinda
gonna
part
do.
of it.
Welcome to the life of an
If you
NFL
come
wife.
along with him to meet and greets, that's what you're gonna do most of the time. So
There will be females that will come up and want to take pictures with him.
listen, she's probably a fine human being, but
Fine,
yes, there has
yeah.
been, if I believe everything I see on social media, which I don't, there's been some red flags.
Yeah. All right. Next topic. Bill Belichick is heading to Chapel Hill to coach the vaunted North Carolina Tar Heels in college football. Guys, what in the absolute hell is happening right now? Is this real? Is this real?
When this first, like when the rumors first started circulating, the only thing that I could imagine is him on the sidelines in Tar Heel blue, and like I cannot see Bill Belichick of all people in Tar Heel blue. And also, Bill Belichick's known as like one of the most hard coaches of all time. I cannot imagine him coaching college kids. Like I can't. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's not going to be successful because he's the greatest NFL coach of all time.
Right.
But it's hard to see this working out too well. And we talked about this off camera before. There's a way for him to get out of this contract before the season starts over the summer. So it basically puts something in his contract that's like, if you're offered an NFL job, he has a way out to take it. And if that opportunity presents itself, like I don't see any way of him turning that down because I can't see him being a college head coach. I cannot see it.
It's hard to see. And like some people will say, well, he's smart enough to change his style to fit more of these younger guys that aren't professionals. Well, he didn't change his style for professionals.
And
Tom
he
Brady
lost
was the
Tom
best
Brady.
quarterback that ever played, and he never treated him better than a normal player.
He
He
should
never
have
gave him a
retired.
big contract. So
He
like
should have retired as a
never,
Patriot. Yeah.
yeah, like Bill Belichick never changed his style, even with the pros. So we'll see how that works out. But like for North Carolina, this feels like to me like we had the chance to hire a legend and create some noise, and we're gonna do it. And I don't really see like
Sounds familiar, didn't they?
I don't see like sort of Mac Brown. Yeah. I don't see anything that bad about it. I think it's gonna work. Not necessarily. I think that he'll have a good defense. I think he has some pretty good selling points on the recruiting trail for sure, and he's done a good job recruiting already. He's got a 4-star quarterback and the number 1 JUCO running back, and
handful of rings helps in recruiting.
Yeah, like he's gonna. I mean, he's gonna have a lot of NFL coaching talent in his corner, and I think that's helped a guy like Dion at Colorado. Like I know Matt Patricia is ridiculous, but he brought in Matt Patricia. OC, he wants to bring in Scott Turner, Norv Turner's son, who's been an OC in the NFL for a long, long time. So I think the selling point's pretty simple. You come here, I'm going to get you to the NFL. And I know there's a lot of programs that do that. Ohio State, Oregon can do that. Georgia can do that. Alabama can do that. But North Carolina enters that conversation because you have probably the best NFL coach of all time now coaching that program. He knows every answer to every question when it comes to what do you need to do to play at the next level. So I think that's going to be a really good selling point for him in recruiting. But can he keep those guys on campus once he gets them? We'll see. Because once you get behind the curtain, a peek behind the curtain, I wonder, like, because the recruiting coach, the coach that's recruiting you, and the coach that you actually play for are two different guys.
Two different things, yeah.
So we'll see how Bill Belichick manages that. But it's not like one thing you do know about him. This isn't like that retread coach that doesn't care anymore.
Right.
This is a coach that is hungry as hell to coach again.
Yeah.
Wherever it was, he was ready to hop back in. So
and
I think that does bode well for North Carolina, that he still has his heart in it.
I genuinely hope it works because there's one thing that I hate. I hate watching people tarnish legacies, especially one as big as he's built.
Yes.
Like I don't know. There's something in me just as a lifelong sports fan that I just hate seeing people ruin their legacy, and that you always have to look back and say, well, this happened also. So I genuinely do hope it works out because I believe he's the greatest coach of all time. He did incredible things in the NFL. And I just don't want to see him bored and ruin it. Cause it's like, if it fails and we look back, it'll always be he was the greatest NFL coach of all time, but he went and did this,
Yeah.
and he could have just hung it up and called it a day. Like no one is even remotely would have blamed Bill Belichick for calling it a day.
I will say the one thing that does really rub me the wrong way, though, the succession plan. You've seen that?
It's a
Steve,
son.
Steve Belichick, his son, is the succession plan when he's done because he's 72.
yeah,
What?
yeah.
Guy has no head coaching experience anywhere.
Come on,
What the
man.
hell are we doing? Why would you agree to
Strange.
that if you're North Carolina?
Yeah.
That seems stupid. Nepotism works again, though.
Yeah.
I never blame anybody for using their nepotism to
No.
try to
Either.
using their connections to facilitate nepotism is probably the better way of saying that. But this one feels especially egregious. This is Braun and Bronny level stuff going on right now in North Carolina.
We need to put out a poll. Hey, in the comments below, what's the worst nepotism scenario from this year? Braun and Bronny or Steve and Bill?
Steve and
Yeah.
Bill.
Who has coattails?
Well,
who
I
is-
know which one will be talked about more, and which guy's going to be drugged through the mud more. But which one is worse?
Yeah.
There you go.
Who's coattailed harder, Steve Belichick or Bronny James?
Right.
All right,
right.
Kenny.
Percentage. Give me a real quick percentage that we see Bill Belichick on a North Carolina sideline next year. Percentage.
99%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like 80, 85.
Oh, you
Oh,
okay?
okay.
I thought for sure it would be lower than that.
No, I mean,
I
I think it's a small percentage. I
That he-
don't think
that he-
it's some massive percentage, but I don't think it's impossible.
who's the NFL team that you would be like, okay, they're going to go hire him? Bears, no.
That's the thing is I don't know.
Cowboys, no.
Cowboys aren't even gonna fire Mike McCarthy.
That's
Unfortunately,
gross.
Did y'all
If
see
the
Mike
Raiders
McCarthy
fired
run on the
Antonio
field
Pierce,
yesterday?
probably not.
but there's the
But maybe there's a glimmer there.
Tom connection in Vegas.
The Jets, I don't know, probably not, because he's always hated on them.
They
Over
got
the
bad
years.
blood.
I
I
can
don't know.
see the Ra- I can
don't
see the
think
Raiders.
NFL's all that interested in hiring him at this point.
I can see the Raiders do it. I can
I
see
can
the
I
see
Raiders.
think that's the most likely, but even that one feels kind of unlikely at this point.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, cool. All right, man, we got some. I love it. This is it. This is the weekend. College football playoffs start this weekend. Run through some of the games real quick. The brackets. We got Clemson versus Texas on the 21st. Tennessee versus Ohio State on the 21st. We've got SMU, Penn State on the 21st. Indiana and Notre Dame on the 20th. What's y'all's game of the week?
To me, there's only even two options here. It's got to be either Clemson, Texas, or Tennessee, Ohio State. And past that, it doesn't feel very close. But by showing through, I'm going to go Tennessee, Ohio State, because Ohio State, most talented team in the country. No one is arguing that at all. I mean, you look down this roster, and Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, Jack Sawyer. Like, this roster is absurd. But then you look at Tennessee, they started playing really their best ball at the end of the year. I know they lost to Georgia, but Nico started playing really well towards the end of the year. You have Dylan Sampson, who has been just absolutely somehow unspoken about during this college football season. Third team All-American for him, to me, is a travesty. But I think it's a really good game. I think they're pretty evenly matched. Even though I think Ohio State has more overall talent, I think Will Howard is a complete liability. And you look at Tennessee's defense, which has been among the best in the country this year, and you look at the injuries on Ohio State's offensive line, I think Tennessee could potentially get after Ohio State. And if they pressure Will Howard, I don't see him responding very well to that. So I think it goes either Ohio State's talent wins out over Tennessee's because they are the more talented team, or Ohio State's inefficiencies being an injured offensive line and Will Howard allowed Tennessee to go into Columbus and get a win and move on to play Oregon. So I think that's an extremely alluring game. It should be a lot of fun. It's two very historical college football programs that have only played once all time. And I think that was back in like 95 or 96 with Peyton Manning. So it's two teams with high brand recognition that never really play each other. So that's kind of what this whole thing is about in a nutshell.
Yeah, I agree with you. That would be my game of the week. But I'm going to go with my second game of the week here. I'm going with Indiana and Notre Dame. Battle of Indiana, man.
Wow.
Battle of Indiana, 8 versus number 5. I think Indiana slept on, man. They lose that one game to Ohio State, 38-15, and Curtis Rourke has a bad game. Everybody throws them to the side. But this sort of reminds me of like TCU versus Michigan a couple of years ago, where TCU went in and they were playing really good offense. No one really gave them a shot, but they had a way to go beat Michigan, and that was lighting up the scoreboard. Now, I think this is a little bit different. I do think that Indiana can expose the back end potentially of Notre Dame. Benjamin Morrison's been out all year. They don't have their best cover corner, and that's going to be a problem. You have to make sure if you're Indiana to win those matchups downfield. So we'll see how that goes. But one thing that you have to pay attention to in this game, I know it's going to be in South Bend. They'll both be ready for the cold. But Notre Dame, the reason they have been so good after that Northern Illinois loss is they've ran the hell out of the ball.
Yes.
And they have not run into a defense who has forced Riley Leonard to beat them from the pocket. What can Indiana do? He can force Riley Leonard to try to beat them from the pocket.
Yep.
Because they are the number 1 rush defense from a yards per game standpoint. They're only allowing like 75 yards per game rushing. So which one is going to prevail? Is Notre Dame going to be able to break that trend, or is Indiana going to keep that up? If Indiana can keep that up, they have a great shot to go spring the upset in South Bend.
I hope they wax Notre Dame.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
But this does it gives me like you have that blue blood that you expect to win, you know, and coming from a solid position, and the upstart, like no one expects them to be their team.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that TCU Michigan matchup where TCU ended up winning and going to the national championship a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think
that reminds me of that, where we just assume Indiana isn't as good as they actually are.
Right.
That's how we felt about that TCU team until they showed us.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it is an underrated matchup. That's kind of the 3 that I was looking at. Now, like that was based off of me personally. I'd rather watch Clemson, Texas, and Tennessee, Ohio State. But I think the Indiana Notre Dame game has a lot of storylines. Like you said, it's an in-state matchup, and it's the blue blood that everybody kind of hates Notre Dame, right? Like everybody kind of feels like Notre Dame has this privilege that no one else has. You don't have to win a conference championship or anything like this. And I truly do. I hope they get absolutely waxed by Indiana, because Indiana's been a fun story. Kirk Cignetti's been a fun story, and I can't stand Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I think it is BS that they get the treatment that they get, and I hope they get waxed.
And I know we're about to wrap it up, but I've missed a lot of time, so I have to say one more thing. The bye game situation and how the top 4 teams are being rated is garbage. Get rid of it. Done.
Got to change. Got to change this.
I haven't gotten to get that takeoff on this particular podcast.
Okay.
Had to get
How would
that
you
out.
change it?
Boise
How would you
State
change
and
it?
Arizona State do not deserve it. Just rank them. Just rank them.
Top 4.
Top 4 get a bye. That's it. Top
Well,
4.
top four get a bye, but rank them as they lay. Just because you win a conference championship does not mean that you should get a bye. Boise State should not get a bye over the runner-up in the SEC or the runner-up in the damn Big Ten. That's stupid.
100%. Obviously,
Then you end up with Oregon, who goes lone undefeated, and they get gifted with an 8-9 matchup of Ohio State and Tennessee.
Yeah,
so
like,
wild.
that's garbage to me.
Yeah. No, if you look at the brackets, Georgia don't care who the starting don't care who their quarterback is.
Agreed.
They should steamroll to the national championship.
Yes.
They have no competition. It's Boise State, Indiana, Notre Dame. What's the other game?
Penn State.
Penn State, SMU. None of those teams are national championship contenders to me. I don't care if Penn State only lost 1 game this year. I think they're not good. Could be totally wrong. They could go win a national championship, but I've watched a lot of college football. Don't think Penn State's good. So you look at it, it's just totally uneven. So like you're saying, it should be ranked. Top 4 teams get a bye. Obviously, conference championship winners should get an auto bid. If you win a conference championship, you're in, but it should not guarantee you.
But like the fact that the number 6 and number 7 teams in the country become, because of the system, the number 8 and the number 9 teams in the country.
So crazy, man.
Like, that is just garbage. And like a team that has just managed themselves so well all year in Oregon does that and gets gifted with that bullshit. That's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, for Oregon, who is undefeated and was the best team in the country this year, they have to go through either Tennessee and Ohio State and either Texas and Clemson. which I think we would all agree, Tennessee, Ohio State, Texas, and Clemson are pretty much better than the whole bottom side of the bracket.
They
Outside
took
of Georgia,
that
outside
uneven
of Georgia.
scheduling.
No. Yeah, outside of Georgia, I would take any of those teams to beat SMU, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, or Boise State.
Well,
Just my opinion.
I love how they're like putting a cap on the like. We talked about uneven scheduling all year, where the SEC has the toughest schedule and everybody else just floating in the wind. And even in the SEC, you had Mizzou with their schedule versus Florida and their schedule. Like you have the uneven scheduling. They capped it off with that, giving Oregon the just shit into the stick.
100%.
They had to cap off the season with the same conversation that we've been having the whole year.
Yeah.
All right, give me one first round upset. What happens this week? Any upsets?
Indiana over Notre Dame. I'm taking it.
Same. Indiana over Notre Dame. I'll definitely go with that one as well. If you want me to give something different, I'll give something crazy and just say Clemson beats Texas just because that would be funny.
Which honestly,
It happen.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. Texas hadn't played a soul and hadn't beat a soul.
No, I agree. All right, boys. Well, let's wrap it up. Everybody, we appreciate you for joining us this week, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening via the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can like, subscribe, comment on any of those platforms. Obviously, very happy to have Gabe back this week. Congratulations to him once again. Everybody show him some love, whether that's in the comments, on Twitter, wherever that is. Papa Gabe is here and he's back. So once
I
again,
got a shout out real quick. Shout out to Joaquin Buckley for beating the crap out of Colby Covington.
Yes.
It's a big one.
They had ended third round because his eyelid was about to get cooked.
Did you see what Colby said? Afterwards? He's like, I was just getting into my stride.
No, dude. The blood, like honestly, watching that fight got really hard. Did you see the blood that leaked out onto Joaquin's leg in the third round?
There was it looked like there was like fat from his eye that was.
It was rough.
Coagulating all. Oh,
he said I was just hitting my stride. What's the guy fucking Rocky? Is he thinking?
He said I was just hitting my stride. Shout out to Joaquin Buckley. Go ahead, Christian. I'm sorry.
All right, everybody.
Shout out to Joaquin Buckley, Rockwood School District. He went to my rival high school, Marquette High School. Shout out to Marquette High School, even though they're my rival to Lafayette High School, where I went.
Let's go.
Well, you learn something new every day. All right, everybody. We appreciate you for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.